And we're live.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second of these seminars today for businesses throughout Monmouthshire. I'm Councillor Bob Greenland. I'm Deputy Leader of the Council, and I hold political responsibility for economic development. Now, my background is actually in private business. I've run retail businesses, and I have run businesses in the tourism sector as well. But I've never had to face anything like I know our businesses are facing at the moment. And I suppose I've got a personal interest in trying to ensure that at Monmouthshire County Council, we do everything we possibly can to help you. Your businesses are the backbone of Monmouthshire, and we need to try and ensure that as we move through this pandemic and through what will be a long recovery period afterwards, we still have you with us. And believe me, officers in the council, which is headed by Paul Matthews, are all of that same mind. We've drafted in people to help with business loans, and and that's just one of the extra areas that we're helping over this pandemic. But I know that there are lots of problems for you still out there as regards business loans. And the purpose of this afternoon is to try and just give you a brief outline of what's going on, and from the Welsh Government point of view and from our Monmouthshire County Council point of view, and to try and answer those questions for you that have been posted beforehand and which we're also going to take live this afternoon, and we'll try and answer all those. Do you know, there are some questions that we can't answer because I have a feeling that there are some people who are falling through the gaps of the help that is out there at the moment. But perhaps we'll look into that as we go through this session with you today. Before I introduce the speakers to you, who will be just talking for a short while, I'm going to ask our Head of Communications, Abby Barton, to come in, and Abby is going to give you a few bits of technical advice. Abby, can I ask you to come in, please?
Thank you, Bob. Welcome, everybody. This is a live stream session. You'll have the opportunity to post a question in the chat, and thank you so much. I can see some questions coming in already. As Bob mentioned, we'll come to those after the presentations. If for any reason your internet's running slow, please pause the stream and it will catch up. Worst case scenario, we're recording this session and you can watch it back. So if you've posted a question in the chat, you can watch back at a different time and hear the answer to your question. Thanks ever so much.
And talking about the chat, I think you will see that there's a chat bar and there's an icon that looks like a rectangular speech bubble at, well, I think it's probably at the top right of your screen. So there it is for you if you wish to put the question. Right, we're very fortunate that we have in Monmouthshire something called the Business Resilience Forum. And this was started back in the floods of last year, when businesses were having extreme difficulties in that period of time. And we brought together the business leaders from around the county, the main towns and the villages. And with them, we also invited in representative from Welsh Government and our own officers who were particularly involved in dealing with business issues. And together we have a regular forum where we can talk about and try and hammer out the problems that our businesses are facing. But we are very aware that not all of you are members of these forums. But first of all, I just want to introduce to you Lucy. Lucy runs a business in Abergavenny, and she is one of our regular contributors on the forums. So Lucy, would you like to come in, please?
Thank you, Bob, and hello, everybody. So I represent a Venny business community, but I'm one of the many representatives in the county, and there's a different representative for each area. So Monmouth have their own, Usk have their own. So of any business community set out back in 2017, purpose of being is to have a voice with our council and other authorities to put forward what our issues are and what we're going through. And so the Business Resilience Forum was actually very fortuitous that it came about just as we went into lockdown. And we've been allowed to have a say and put forward some of the issues that we are suffering as businesses. And so I just wanted to give you a quick update on how the businesses are doing at the moment. And it's a mixed bag out there. We've got businesses that are surviving because they've had to rethink the way they trade, and there have been opportunities for them. But there are also businesses out there that are getting no opportunity and are totally suffering. And they are all trying to tread water. And it is important that for these businesses to survive, we have as much information as we can, even if it's to tell us there is no information. But that is the biggest thing that's being chased at the moment, is what's happening when it's happening. The majority feel at the moment that we should remain in lockdown. It's actually more beneficial to continue the lockdown than to be opening and closing continually, because it is taking the comfort and I can't think of the word, I apologise, but it's making people hesitant about the businesses every time we close and open, and it's more detrimental to us. Going forward, there is a lot of concerns about the rates and where we're going to be with rates and what extra costs we're going to have to carry, bearing in mind that, you know, we're going to probably lose 2, maybe 3 months of business in 21. And ironically, people think January is a very quiet month. It's not. For a lot of businesses, it's a very busy month, and it's a big part of income that's been lost, as was the end of December. So we will continue to put our voice forward, and if you as listeners today want to get in touch, then please do. You can find us on Facebook, or you can find us on Monmouthshire's website. If you go onto the link for the business help, right at the bottom, there's all the contacts for all the different representatives. So and that's all I've got to say at this point. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Lucy. And I think it's so important that we hear the view from the front line, from somebody who is having to battle with all these financial and commercial difficulties that you're all in at the moment. So thank you for that, Lucy. And as Lucy has mentioned, if you want to join your local forum, then you will find the details. And I think it's possibly even on the chat line. I'm not sure at the moment. But if you also, I want to give you another address. The coordinator for the forum in Monmouthshire is James Woodcock. And so if you would like to contact James, James is James Woodcock, no dots, James Woodcock at monmouthshire.gov.uk, and James will put you in touch with the right business forum. Okay. Yes, business rates is a big issue. We know that to be the case. The Welsh Government did give this holiday for a number of businesses, and it was it was a lifeline during last year. But I'm really disappointed that at the moment we haven't heard what, if any, there will be if there'll be a business rates holiday for next year, and that is one of the areas where we are lobbying Welsh Government. Later on in the meeting, you will hear from Peter Fox, our leader. Councillor Fox is in very regular meetings with ministers. In fact, he will tell you, I think he's got one tomorrow. And so the issues that will be brought up tonight, you can have a real input into the Welsh Government direct very, very quickly. And that's something actually you wouldn't get in England. We would never have the opportunity of being able to talk to ministers on a one-to-one basis from local authorities as we do. And talking about Welsh Government, I want to introduce our second speaker today, and it's Jonathan Hughes from the Welsh Government. Jonathan is in the front line of dealing with these grants at the moment, and so he's well placed to be able to tell you a bit about what is going on, and also he'll be answering some of the questions later on. And he also comes regularly to our forum meetings. So welcome again, Jonathan. Over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenland. I'd just like to echo Councillor Greenland's comments about how it must be for people in business, and also Lucy's comments. I personally am very aware of these difficulties, as my wife runs a lunchtime catering business in Newport, and we too have been badly affected by the successive lockdowns. I'd just like to recap on some of the support that's been available. Clearly, the UK government has invested significant amounts of money into the business community through the coronavirus job retention scheme to help people retain their employees, and the self-employment income support scheme to help those self-employed people replace some of their income. There's also been the British Business Bank has provided government guarantees for lending through the business interruption loan scheme and the bounce back loans. We Welsh Government have tried to complement what the UK Government has offered in partnership with our local authority partners such as Monmouthshire County Council, and we've released over £1 billion into Welsh businesses, either through non-domestic rates grants or the iterations of the Economic Resilience Fund. Just to, in summary, and I don't want to steal Ruth Donovan's fire later on, who will go into more detail. For those small businesses that have been eligible for small business rates relief, they've been able to apply for support through the local authorities. And those small businesses that don't pay business rates but VAT registered have been able to apply for the Welsh Government's Economic Resilience Funds. Right now, we're at the end of dealing with the latest round of support that's been available for tourism, leisure, hospitality and non-essential retail. There's been a lot going on, some of it a bit confusing, but to give you a picture, a small business with a property of a rateable value, or say up to 12,000, would have been able to apply for around £15,000 of support this financial year. We've had to respond quickly, and this has meant that some of the funding mechanisms arguably blunt instruments, and we've not been able to reach every business. That's really been because time has been the essence. But I would echo Councillor Greenland's comments that if you feed back to your local authority, they are in contact with our ministers and will raise where people aren't falling between the cracks. Future support is clearly intrinsically linked to how the pandemic redevelops. Last week, the First Minister announced that there will be a further £200 million being made available to support businesses in Wales. The nature of this funding will be announced tomorrow, and the delivery will be as instant as it possibly can. For the time being, I can't give you the exact details as they're embargoed until the announcement, and I doubt whether First Minister Drakeford would appreciate if I did. We're also considering further down the line, as the pandemic eases, and how we support businesses with further funding to develop their businesses, to diversify and develop new income streams. In the coming weeks, the Minister for Economy and Transport in North Wales, Ken Skates, will announce our Economic Resilience and Reconstruction mission, which will set out the key themes of the response post-pandemic. Whilst I'm not quite privy to all the details, I think we can be assured that there will be a number of themes in there which we've previously committed to, which is about supporting the foundational economy, regenerating town centres, encouraging local procurement, developing digital capability and innovation across all sectors. The regional team which I represent, we're committed to working with our local authority partners and Monmouthshire County Council to ensure that we deliver these priorities together and to meet local needs. Much of what will happen in the future will depend on how the pandemic develops, and please be assured that I will be in full communication with Monmouthshire, and we'll reach out to you, the business community. Welsh Government tends to put out its information through a number of different media outlets, but one of the benefits of having these meetings and also having the database of your contact details is that once we get information, we will ensure that that gets out to you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Jonathan. And from that, I think we can take it that the current grants that are on offer will have some successors to deal with the problem that's going on, but we will have to wait and hear the announcements on those. One of the things that I would comment on is this, that what tends to happen is the Welsh Government Minister, the First Minister very often, will make an announcement of new grants. And then we in local authorities have to wait until we get the details of those grants. And we can be talking about some, it's certainly not instant, it can be some days or weeks before we get the information and the rules on those grants. And it isn't until we get those rules and we know the criteria that the government have set that we can even begin to move out to our businesses and ask for applications to come in. And then, so there is, I'm afraid, from the time of the announcement to the time that we may be able to get money out to you, the businesses, there is, I'm afraid, a time lag. And I know that that time lag is incredibly important to a lot of you. But just to explain a little bit more about how we are working within Monmouthshire, I want to introduce you to Ruth Donovan, who heads up our teams that are dealing with your grant applications and making sure the money gets out into your bank accounts. So Ruth, can I hand over to you, please?
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, everyone. Yes, as I say, I'm Ruth, and I'm currently responsible for overseeing the small team that's come together to administer these business support grants. As a council, we've been administering the grants on behalf of Welsh Government since the pandemic began last March. And to date, we've seen about 7 different grants, and we've made around 4,000 payments totaling £30 million to businesses in Monmouthshire. With each grant that Welsh Government provide us, they give us details of the grant package, which things include the eligibility criteria, terms and conditions and application forms, accompanied by a sum of money to make these grant payments to businesses. Any of the money remaining at the end of the grant scheme is then returned to Welsh Government. And we recognise that all these different grant schemes can sometimes be confusing. With each lockdown, there's a new grant with a new name and different conditions attached to them. We do aim to keep our website up to date as much as possible, and we'd encourage you to look at our business support pages at monmouthshire.gov.uk/business advice. There'll be information and application forms on those pages. Also, we'd advise you to keep an eye on our Twitter account for reminders, prompts, updates, particularly around the dates when schemes are going to close. So what grants are currently available to businesses and which ones are you eligible for? Well, this will really depend on a couple of things. Firstly, the key thing is whether the business is rated for business rates in Monmouthshire. If it is, and you have a rateable value of up to £150,000, you operate in certain sectors, and we're actively trading up to the 4th of December, and in occupation on the 30th of November, then you could be eligible for a business restrictions NDR grant. Now, this grant was initially introduced to help businesses operating in hospitality, tourism and leisure sectors, including your supply chains, and those were affected by the restrictions introduced on the 4th of December, which included closing at 6 p.m. and not selling alcohol. The scheme was then later expanded to include non-essential retail following the decision to move to a full lockdown on the 20th of December. So if your business operates in these sectors and you previously received a fire break lockdown grant from us, you would be eligible for an automatic payment of either £3,000 or £5,000, depending on your rateable value. The automatic payments for hospitality businesses were made on the 15th of December, and to businesses in the other eligible sectors on the 7th of January. So for those businesses, there was no need to apply for the new grant. We emailed all businesses who had previously received a fire break lockdown NDR grant in early January to confirm whether or not an automatic payment had been made to you. The payments were based on what we know about your business from previous applications. Therefore, if a business felt that they should have received a new grant and didn't get one, we would encourage you to make an application under the new scheme. A couple of key points to point out to businesses relating to the new business restrictions grant is that it's slightly different from some of the previous grants. So under the previous grant schemes, businesses with the rateable value of £12,000 or below were eligible for a grant, regardless of the nature of their business. However, under the new scheme, only businesses operating in certain sectors are eligible. Therefore, not every business that received a firebreak lockdown grant is eligible for the current grant. Also, the latest lockdown regulations allow certain sectors to continue to trade, for example, dog groomers, IT repair, hardware stores. Therefore, these businesses are not eligible for an automatic grant at the moment. However, if you're one of those businesses and you've seen a drop in turnover of 40% or more, comparing December 19 to December 20, as a direct result of these latest restrictions, then you can apply for a grant using our online application form. The restrictions grant was also expanded to include businesses in the sectors with a rateable value of between 51,000 and 150,000. And these businesses need to apply using our online application form. The scheme was extended to include the full lockdown from the 20th of December. Now, some hospitality businesses that received the original payment on the 15th of December did in fact expect an additional payment following that extension of the lockdown. However, unfortunately, this is not the case. The scheme was expanded to include non-essential retail and didn't allow for a further payment to hospitality. These grants are in addition to the rate relief that's automatically applied to business rate accounts. Councillor Greenland has already mentioned that we're lobbying on behalf of businesses for a decision on the future of these reliefs. Small business rate relief is available to all businesses with a rateable value of up to £12,000, and that will continue into next year. However, an additional rate relief scheme was brought in this year, particularly for retail, leisure and hospitality businesses. And that was for a rateable value of a business up to £500,000. Now, we haven't had confirmation from Welsh Government that that will continue this year, next year, and we await confirmation as to what may happen next on those schemes. So that's for businesses who are rated within Monmouthshire. For businesses in the county that are not rated and do not have a rateable value, you may be eligible for a business restrictions discretionary grant of £2,000. So to qualify, there is certain criteria that has to be met. Even though the grant is called a discretionary grant, there are some key criteria points that businesses have to meet to be eligible. Full details of those can be found on our website, but the key points to draw to businesses' attention this evening is that you need to have been trading prior to the 1st of September 2020. You need to be operating in Wales. You need to either have been forced to close or seen a 40% drop in turnover as a direct result of the latest restrictions. The business needs to be your main source of income. If you're a limited company, to be eligible, your turnover needs to be between £10,000 and £50,000. And for sole traders, turnover has to be less than £85,000 a year. And you can't apply for the two grants. So you either have the NDR grant or you have the discretionary grant. These discretionary grants are awarded on an application basis. There are no automatic payments. So unlike the NDR scheme, if you previously received a firebreak discretionary grant, you will need to reapply for the restrictions grant using our online application form. There is one other grant currently available to businesses operating in hospitality, leisure and tourism sectors, and this is called an ERF sector-specific grant. This grant isn't being administered through Monmouthshire County Council, it's actually through Business Wales. I just point out that the scheme is time limited and it does in fact close tomorrow lunchtime. So you need to get your applications in quickly on that if you haven't already applied. Applications can be made through the Business Wales website under their COVID-19 support pages. We are currently receiving lots of questions, as you would imagine, about what happens next when the current grant schemes end now at the end of January. Given the current lockdown restrictions are likely to be in place for some time, we do expect further support for businesses to be announced shortly, possibly as early as tomorrow, as Jonathan mentioned in the First Minister's update. We have had some initial conversations with Welsh Government colleagues, but we do await the full details of the next support package. When we have that information, we will let you know as soon as we get it, and we will publish the details on our website at monmouthshire.gov.uk business advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. I did pick up from that the urgency of the ERF sector-specific grant, which closes tomorrow. So again, I would underline what you've just said, that if you are in that sector, and I think it's hospitality tourism, is that right? Have I got that right? Hospitality tourism, and you think you might be eligible for that grant, you've got a very short time to get onto the Business Wales website and to apply for that grant. Now, that leaves the other grants that you've talked about, Ruth. Am I right in saying, therefore, that the first gateway in which people need to walk through is if they're paying, or if they're registered for non-domestic rates, then they have an opportunity to apply for the business restrictions NDR grant through Monmouthshire County Council. Then we also have a grant which is open now for us that you're taking, and that's the business restrictions discretionary grant. That's if you're not paying and you're not rather registered for domestic rates, and there are a lot of businesses who find themselves in that position, people who are offering mobile services of one sort or another, or perhaps who are paying rent for a property that doesn't include the rates, etc. All those sort of things. Businesses might qualify for those sort of grants. That's two sort of grants, therefore, that are open, and you would normally, if you don't qualify under the NDR, then they're looking for the discretionary grants that could be available. I think that's right. I can see some heads nodding, so I hope I've got that right. Can I just point out one other thing for people, and this has been something that has been asked of me on a number of occasions. People think that these discretionary grants mean that they are at the discretion of Monmouthshire County Council to give to whomever they think is right. That is not the case. A discretionary grant is a non-domestic rates grant. It's somebody who doesn't apply, isn't able to apply for an NDR grant. They therefore could possibly fit into the discretionary bracket. But that again is a Welsh Government grant that comes with a lot of rules that we in Monmouthshire have to follow. And so it isn't the fact that we can simply hand out money to anybody who we think is worthy of a grant. We have to follow those rules. So I hope that I've made that plain. And one of the big issues that we've already mentioned is that
apologies, everyone. I think Bob's screen might have frozen then. Can everyone hear Bob? No? I think, is everyone happy for us to go to some questions while we wait for Bob's screen to unfreeze maybe? The first question we've had in, I think this is a question for Jonathan, please. Joanne from Classic Hair Salon Mega says, I am a self-employed small business owner of a hair salon that has no other employees other than myself. I'm registered for small business rates relief with a rateable value of under £15,000. My business has been and is still severely impacted due to the ongoing restrictions and lockdowns. I've received the October firebreak grant and the December restrictions grant, but my business has to remain closed for the foreseeable future without any sign of financial help for the next few months. So, could you please inform me of all the latest business grants and support I'm entitled to so I can ensure my salon, rent and other important business bills are covered during these extremely hard and testing months while I'm unable to earn money? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. We will know more tomorrow after the First Minister's announcement, but the Minister for Economy and Transport, Ken Skates, was reported today in some of the business press as saying this is going to be similar to what's happened before. We're looking to work with our local authority partners to ensure that through existing mechanisms to try and get money out into the business community as quickly as possible. So clearly the devil will be in the detail, and we'll find out more tomorrow, but there is a commitment to reissue or reiterate what we've done before to help businesses in that situation, whether that be through the non-domestic rate system, discretionary funding, or whether through the Economic Resilience Fund. But we'll watch this space tomorrow.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is for James. Maria from, sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Sarai in Abergavenny. Maria's asking, I've applied and have been successful for the discretionary grant in December. The only financial support received since March 2020. Are there going to be any further discretionary grants in the future? Thanks, James.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Abby. That is a decision that will be taken by Welsh Government and then the Minister. We don't know the answer to that yet. As Jonathan's alluded to, we may find out more on that tomorrow. As soon as we have details of any scheme and the details are confirmed, we will make those available on our website, which is the monmouthshire.gov.uk/business advice.
Great, thank you, James. And the next one is from Steve from Abergavenny Taxis. So Steve's question is, I've not been eligible for grants in the past because I'm a new business starting trading in 2019. I'm a taxi business with no rateable premises. My business is airports and cruise terminal transfers, which have been severely impacted by the government's imposed travel restrictions. What grants can I apply for? Is that for you, James, please? Hi, James.
Yes, thank you, Abby. If Steve's business is not registered for business rates, then he may be eligible for the restrictions business discretionary grant, which Ruth mentioned earlier. To access that, he would need to have been trading before the 1st of September 2020, and I'm not sure whether he's a limited company or not. If he's a limited company, his turnover would need to be between 10 and 50k. £50,000 per year, or if he's in a partnership or a sole trader, then his turnover would need to be up to 85,000 for the year.
Thank you. I think the next question we've got is for Jonathan, please. So Darren from Helmet Hers Salon in Monmouth says, can we apply for the ERF fund as we've lost more than 60% of our turnover?
Obviously, without the full details, I can't fully answer that. But given the drop in turnover, hopefully what we find out tomorrow, there will be some support for you, either through the non-domestic rates grants or through the Economic Resilience Fund, depending on what's more appropriate. But without the details, I can't guide you on that. But I think we can be assured from what's been said today and what's likely to come out tomorrow that there will be support for businesses like yours.
Thank you, Jonathan. And we've posted in the chats email addresses and websites if people have got any follow-up questions. The next question is from Martin. So he's from Morgan Escott and Company in Monmouth. His question is, what financial support is there for self-employed sole traders? Are you happy to take that maybe, Jonathan, please?
Yeah, once again, without knowing all the details, for example, we don't know if you have premises and pay business rates. If you do, then there may be a route through the non-domestic rates. If not, the only suggestion I can think of is through the self-employment scheme run through the government. But again, if there are other circumstances, please let this meeting know. And again, if it's a gap, then Councillors Fox and Greenland will take it up with Welsh Government.
Awesome, thank you. The next couple of questions, I think these are questions for Ruth, please. First question, could we have clarity on whether the Chancellor's announcement on the 5th of January refers to UK-wide or just England? Specifically, the one-off grants of up to £9,000 to retail, hospitality and leisure.
Actually, do you want me to answer that, Ruth?
Oh yeah, great. Yeah.
By all means, yeah.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Yes. The announcement by the Chancellor.
I think you're muted. Sorry, Jonathan.
The announcement by the Chancellor for England is a tiered system where they're talking about £4,000 for business rates, payers under the small business rate relief scheme, and then tiered up to 9,000 for those businesses with a rateable value over 50,000. It's not really very different from what we're offering, and again, this is only the second iteration in England, as aside to the third from ourselves. So it's similar, but not exactly the same. And again, this latest announcement will be again, an iteration of what we've done before.
Brilliant, thank you. The next question is there any support available for retail businesses who open after the 1st of September 2020? My lease was signed on the 29th of October. Hi, Ruth, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it does depend on certain circumstances with that one. In particular, whether you are trading on the 4th of December. As I said previously, you need the property needs to be registered on the 1st of September. But you need to be actually in that business as at the 30th of November and trading on the 4th of December. So it does depend on particular circumstances around your business.
Abby, can I come in, please? Just a point of clarification listening to the discussion. So if you've got a business that registered for business rates, we're talking about businesses that you can apply if you have started trading after the 1st of September, is that right? But if you're talking about discretionary rates and you started trading after the 1st of December, you don't qualify. Have I got that right or not? Sorry, I can't hear.
So, thanks, Councillor Greenland. The requirement is that you have started trading by the 1st of September 2020 and that you are actively trading and looking to generate revenue by the 4th of December.
Right, because that for me is a big hole in the system. At the moment, an awful lot of people who have been made redundant have been thinking about setting up their own businesses. And they've been doing it during the summer and the autumn. And new businesses are going to expend more money during the opening or even prior to opening than anything else. And so their cash flow is going to be extremely difficult. And it seems to me a big gap if we are excluding those businesses properly set up, but who have set up after the 1st of September, if the government is not giving any grants to those businesses. And that is an area where we need to lobby heavily, I'm sure.
Thank you, Bob. Shall I shout some more questions out?
Please do.
Great, thank you. Hi, Denise. Denise's question says, I received the Welsh Government Startup Grant a few months ago as I started my company in September 19. Is there another grant I can now apply for? I think you answered this earlier, didn't you, Jonathan? That keep watching tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know the exact details, but I do know that it will be similar to previous business support grants. Whether it includes startups, I don't know.
Thank you. Sorry, James here. Hi, James.
Thanks, Abby. And also, I'm not quite sure from Denise's circumstances, but given that her business was trading before September 2020, if she's not registered for business rates, she may also potentially be eligible for the restrictions discretionary fund. So please do check our website where there's further information on eligibility and an application form.
Excellent, thank you. The next anonymous person is asking, why has it taken so long for an update on funding?
Well, can I just come in on that? I mean, we've never been here before, and when I now look back and I think how long it takes to get economic changes made in the past, what has been happening both by the UK government and the Welsh government is very much quicker than we've ever seen before. However, nevertheless, if you're on the sharp end of business and you're desperate for this money to come through, it seems like an awful long time. And one of the things that I think we have to do is to impress on governments how important it is that we speed up the delivery of the grants. But it's not just the delivery of the grants, but it's more the decision making and moving forward. We know we're going to be in a huge period of recovery. So I hope governments are thinking now about making sure that the grants and the help that is available into the next months and probably years, to be perfectly honest, that those grants can be ironed out now and we can get them in place as quickly as possible. Speed is of the essence here, because so many of our businesses in Monmouthshire are really at the end of their tether and they can't wait while government makes up its mind about which ways they're going to help us. And again, it is an area where I'm sure Peter Fox will be speaking shortly. He will come in and agree that that's where we're trying to really press to government that they have to try and improve the speed with which they make these decisions on future funding.
Thank you, Bob. And the next question is the Economic Resilience Fund sector specific fund for tourism businesses available for sole traders? I'm a holiday let on the non-domestic rates scheme, but I do not have any employees. Does that mean I can't apply? I see it closes tomorrow. Not sure if you know about that one. Maybe Ruth, please. James, no. Perhaps for that person, if you could please email us, because that is perhaps James, your email address maybe for that person, considering it closes tomorrow, to make sure we do it. I've posted jameswoodcott@monmouthshire.gov.uk in the chat, so please do email James and we'll help you, because you're right, time is running out on that one.
Can I just suggest, Abby, can I suggest for that person that they put their application in regardless? If they think they could qualify, get it in now, rather than you might be disappointed, but you don't want to be missing out on that grant if you actually do find you qualify. I would suggest they get it in, burn the midnight oil and try and get that application in now. That's what I would do anyway.
Thank you, Bob. The next question is from Andrea. Hi, Andrea. I hope you're okay. Andrea's asking, what's happening with business rates from March, please?
That's the question that we all want to know the answer to. And as Jonathan has said, we may get the answers from the First Minister tomorrow. I certainly hope we do. And I know that if we don't, we will continue pressing that case about what is happening for business rates from March. We know that the small business rates relief will be coming through. And we know that, yeah, well, we know that that's coming through, but I think that people need a lot more than that in terms of the help going forward while they're closed down. So from Monmouthshire County Council's point of view at the moment, we believe that we would be expected to issue rate demands as from April. And we need, and what, this is something that's worth worth saying as well, because people believe, many people don't understand that although it's Monmouthshire County Council that asks for your business rates, we do so as an agency of the Welsh Government, and those rates are then given over to the Welsh Government. Yes, we get some money back from the Welsh Government, but it's not always the same amount of money. But we don't have the discretion of saying, well, we'll give you a rates holiday for next year. We have to do what the Welsh Government tell us to do.
Thank you, Bob. And linked to that, Andrea submitted a follow-up question. She says, we pay 6 different business rates, but only receive grants for 2. Why is this? Thank you, Ruth.
Hello, yes. Okay, so small business rate relief, you can only claim on 2 properties. So that's sort of why the restriction is then on the number of grants you're able to receive, because that restriction also applies to the number of grants that we're able to pay you if you're eligible for small business rate relief.
Thank you, Ruth. Next question's from Alan. Alan's asking, the Chancellor on or around the 6th of January announced assistance based on the business rates level. This does not seem to be available to us in Wales. Is this correct? Is the position different in Wales than England?
Yes. The Chancellor announced some support for businesses in England. Obviously, support for COVID is devolved to Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland. Just to give you an understanding of what exactly he said, is that there would be, as I said earlier, tiered series of grants for those people paying business rates, £4,000 for those who pay small, who apply qualify for the small business rate relief scheme, 6,000 for those businesses that have a rateable value up to 35,000, up to 50,000, and 9,000 beyond. We've taken a slightly different approach, but there, as I say, we've had 2 iterations of the Economic Resilience Fund. We have now the sector specific fund, and we have what's coming to be announced next week. So Welsh businesses aren't missing out.
Thank you. Darren from Helmet Hairs Limited has got a question. In lockdown 1, hair salons were put in hospitality. Are we now retail? And what grants are there for us? So this is a question around the classification of different businesses. Thank you, Ruth.
Hello, yes. Hairdressers, well, they class in the classification under the current scheme, hospitality and retail. So if you previously received a firebreak lockdown grant for us and you were a hairdresser, you would have received an automatic payment from us in January. If you hadn't applied for the firebreak lockdown grant, then you need to apply for the new grant using the online application form on our website.
Thank you, Ruth. The next question is about appealing around decisions on funding. So this person says, we are a local taxi company and have lost all of our business with the December lockdown due to restaurants and airport transfers, yet we didn't receive a positive result from the sector specific fund. Who can I contact to reconsider this, please? Is there any process if people want to? Thank you, Ruth.
I don't know the exact details of your particular circumstances, so I don't know why you were turned down. The actual terms of the conditions of the Welsh Government grants is that there is no appeal for any decisions. But if you would like to send us the information, we will have a little look at that for you and see why you were turned down.
Thanks, Ruth. A couple of comments from Carl. So Carl saying that discretionary grants are not really discretionary, as they also have criteria that has to be met. Is there any flexibility as we have slipped through the net as we're not VAT or Companies House registered, as we're a brand new startup? They started their refurbishment in February and were unable to open until December. They were due to open on the 4th and they bought around £800 worth of beer and lagers. They're a pub, and due to the restrictions chose not to open. Are we eligible even though we didn't trade? Can anyone help with that, please? Thanks, Ruth.
Again, uncertain about your exact circumstances, but one of the key trigger points for a grant is that you were actively trading on the 4th of December. So I think, unfortunately, if you weren't open and trading, then in that circumstance, you probably wouldn't be eligible for the grant.
Thanks, Ruth. This person says, we last received a payment on the 7th of January. How long was the grant from and to? I'm not sure the details of that person's. Does anyone understand that? Thanks, Ruth. Yeah. Do you understand that question?
Yes, the current business restriction grants run until the end of January. So that we are, as Jonathan says, expecting announcements now from the First Minister in the next couple of days around what will happen next and for how long a period that will cover. But the current grants run to the end of January. Thank you.
Michael saying the Chancellor's announcement on the 5th of January was reported as being a UK announcement. What's happened to this funding? With a rates value of £35,000, we're expecting a £9,000 grant. So is this again the situation before, Jonathan, that it wasn't actually a UK government position?
Yeah, as I say, business support is a devolved matter, and therefore ourselves, the Scots and the Northern Irish, we take our own decisions. As I say, we have, since the initial ERF and NDR, we have issued more money into the Welsh economy, whereas in England, this is the first since that, the beginning of the financial year. So yeah, in terms of the additional monies or any money that we have, tomorrow's announcement will make things much clearer.
Excellent. The next person says, can we apply as a limited company for business restriction discretionary grant if our turnover was over 50,000? Ruth, maybe? No? James? Great. James?
Thank you.
Yeah.
The business restriction discretionary grant, unfortunately, is only open to limited companies with a turnover of between £10,000 and £50,000 per year. So I'm afraid I'm not currently aware of a scheme that caters for those limited companies with a turnover in excess of £50,000 a year. And that's another need that we are raising with Welsh Government, certainly for those businesses with a turnover above that level that have not been able to access support.
Thank you. James is also asking about business rates. He's saying, where do we find information about business rate help for 2021? I'm hoping that the Welsh Government seek to abolish the business rates for 2021-2022. Is there a key place people need to be going, please? Thanks, Ruth.
Yes, all information is published on our website. It's under the Council Tax and Business Rates section. So as soon as we have an announcement as to relief schemes, they will be put there. The details will be posted there. Small business rate relief, as I say, will continue, and that will automatically be applied to the annual bills. Any subsequent schemes may come a little later and may result in revised bills being sent out.
I'm not sure who'll take the next question. I can tell this business, like a lot of businesses, is really struggling. This person's comment is, the last grant was for 43 days. How are we expected to manage without knowing when the next funding's coming?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel so much for businesses like this. But I think the point to make is that the existing government help is through to the end of January, and that there will, I am sure, I'd be very surprised if we don't hear tomorrow or very soon after that of further help that is coming. And as I made reference to earlier, I'm just sorry that you don't already know, because it's not knowing which is so difficult for all of you out there. But I am pretty convinced that we will be getting further packages coming through. So and you really need to just keep up to date with the Monmouthshire County Council website, which will always be updated with the latest information. Or you can contact us direct or the business forum members as well. We're all here to help, and we will get that information to you as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you, Bob. Peter's asking, we've received the non-domestic rate grant of £10,000. If I understood correctly, there's an additional grant available. Is this automatic or do we have to apply? Thanks, Ruth.
It's difficult to say without knowing what your business is. If you receive the 10,000 grant, it doesn't automatically mean you will receive the other grant, because it is sector specific around non-essential retail, hospitality, etc. So we would need to know the nature of your business to be able to give you the exact answer. It wouldn't be automatic if it was the original grant. Automatic payments are triggered by a fire break lockdown grant receipt. So those two grants are linked. So I would suggest, if you're in the retail, leisure and hospitality sectors and you didn't receive a fire break lockdown grant, that you make an application.
Brilliant, thank you. And we've got some more details about some of the brilliant companies that are following us today. We've got some great entrepreneurs in Monmouthshire. Denise is sole trader, she's swimming coach. Denise says, I set up my company in September 2019. I received the Welsh Government Startup Grant for a few months. That's the only financial help I've received. As all pools are closed, I cannot work. Are there any other grants I can apply for? Anyone know about that sort of situation, please?
Again, without knowing the full circumstances, my understanding is the only option I'm aware of is the self-employment income support scheme.
Thank you.
Can I say, Abby, that listening to these questions, the ones that we can't answer are the ones that give me real concern. And those are the ones that I would like to try and delve into further, just to make sure that these people are the ones who are falling through the gaps, because the more evidence that we can get, the stronger will be our case to Welsh Government that there are some further things that need to be done. And actually, I believe that we need to have a proper discretionary fund, because it will be public money that we're handing out. And we in Monmouthshire are not going to hand those out unless we know that there is real need. And I wish that we would have a proper discretionary fund that we could take the decisions on. But can we collate all these that are coming in where it looks as if they're falling through the gaps, and then we must deal with this as a matter of urgency.
Thank you, Bob. The next question is from Gabrielle. So Gabrielle's got a horse retirement business and it's a full horse livery, but due to COVID, people have been nervous to come and view. So this has affected development plans. Is there help out there for people like us? If we expand, we'll be hiring staff, and our original business projection would have allowed us to expand and therefore create jobs. Brilliant question there from Gabrielle. I'm not sure who can help that around, business expansion in these difficult times to, create employment for the county.
I think I mentioned before that there's some consideration being given to help businesses once lockdown eases and pandemic eases to develop their businesses, for example, adopt digital technologies or invest in equipment that might help them become more productive or gain more sales. That was planned to be announced later this month, but the priority has clearly been to try and what's coming on Friday, which is clearly about helping business with their operating costs. But as soon as we're aware of what's happening there now, obviously through the Monmouthshire Business Resilience Forum, I will ensure that that body is made aware. And also, again, now you've got this database, more businesses can be made aware as well.
Brilliant, thank you. I must admit, I'm going to paraphrase Andrea's comment. She's come back. I think we're hearing really clearly that business rates is a really key issue for people. Andrea's come back in black capital letters, so I can tell how passionate she's feeling. Andrea says, I really like my question asked about my premises that has 6 different business rates that come to over £40,000. In her case, she said, but I only receive grants for the 2. So I'm not sure the best channel for us to capture this, but you know, Bob, we've talked about making sure that we're really making sure that the output from these sessions is shared in terms of the frustration people are feeling. We'll definitely do that and take it on board, Andrea. Thank you. Next person says, I've applied for a freelancer grant. When will I hear about this? Thanks, Ruth.
Well, the freelancers grant scheme closed some time ago. It would be, I don't know your circumstances, your particular application, so I don't know whether you could email us the details and we could have a look at that for you. Certainly the majority of applications have been processed. I think there are about 3 or 4 outstanding, and we'd actually been in touch with those applicants this week, so we'd need to know a little bit more about your details as to be able to investigate that for you.
Thank you, Ruth. Mike's asking a question that I think we've answered here. Mike said, do you expect that we will have to pay full business rates for 2021 and 22? I think we've covered that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're waiting to hear. That's fine. Anne says, we received the fire break payment of £3,000 and a second payment of £3,000. When is the next grant due for pubs and hospitality? Is that the same about waiting? Yeah, great. Oh, Andrea's come back again about her business rate. She said it's 6 in 1 property. So I think, is there a business rates email, Ruth, maybe if Andrew would like a specific conversation about this particular situation, maybe? Or the generic email I posted in the chat, maybe, Ruth? Do you think? Just making sure that, or should we, the generic one I posted?
Yeah, if Andrew, if you'd like to email counciltax@monmouthshire.gov.uk with the specific details, they will be able to have a look at your business rate accounts and come back to you to confirm what the situation is with those. It will be all linked with the valuation office and how they've categorised your business and how they've the rateable values that they've attributed to those various parts of your business.
Thank you, Ruth. Nicholas says, we're a limited company in the taxi industry, over 50,000, turnover of over 50,000 and rely on airport transfers, restaurants and end of year functions. Yeah, I was refused business restriction discretionary fund, 3,000 for 2 full-time employees. Should I reapply with a stronger motivation or can I apply for the Monmouthshire fund? So I think this is advice around the process maybe. Can people apply again?
This is several questions we've had now about taxi operators, yes. Isn't it?
Yes.
And it perhaps leads me to believe that there could be a problem that they may be slipping through the gaps in the schemes. Would that be so? Have we, or are there taxi operators who we can help in some way? Either Ruth or James? Ruth?
Oh, thank you. We have certainly been able to help taxi operators. I'm certainly aware of having supported those who are not registered for business rates. So it may be that there is something around the specific circumstances of this business that we can look into. So if that business is happy to email us, we can certainly look into that.
Yeah, can I just come in with a comment? I mean, you know, it is down to the rules that Welsh Government set, and I feel sure that James's team will have looked at every application very carefully, and some taxi operators will qualify, others will not for a grant. And again, the ones we want to know about are the ones that are falling through the gaps for some reason, but are still legitimate businesses that need help. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Paul from Heads of the Valley Training. Paul says, we're a training company with 11 employees in Gilwan. Since the 20th of December, our turnover is 0. We received help via the ERF fund initially last April, May, but as we pay our rates as part of our rent, our landlord, we've not been able to receive any fire break or rate relief assistance whatsoever. The subsequent ERF funds announced in October were exhausted quickly and the window closed before we were able to submit our application. As we missed out in October and continue to pay full rates within our rent, can you advise if we were likely to be given priority consideration for the next grants when they become available?
Right. I think, again, this all comes down to what's announced tomorrow. What I would point out is the ERF fund in October was not there to help people with their operating costs. It was there to help them do something different with their businesses, which was quickly oversubscribed, I have to say. With the next round, and again, it all depends what we see tomorrow. You know, looking at the size of your business, you would be very eligible to apply, subject to all the criteria that comes out tomorrow. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Next person we've got is again Darren from Helmet Hers. He says, Ruth just said we're linked to hospitality, but Darren's received an email from the sector specific fund saying we do not qualify because we are not hospitality. Is this something we could help this hairdressers with, please, Ruth?
Sorry, hairdressers are not classed as hospitality. I'm sorry if that's what I said. They are linked to the grant for hospitality, tourism, leisure and non-essential retail. Hairdressers are classed as non-essential retail, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Ruth. Next is from Debbie from the Boat in Penalt, absolutely gorgeous place. I own a pub and received a grant of £5,000 in December. Can you confirm when the next payment will be? I have a rateable value of £51,000.
That will depend on the announcements that are made tomorrow, hopefully by Welsh Government. Everything has been paid up for the current scheme. Hopefully they will extend that into February, March, and then we can hopefully make some more new automatic payments due. But it is all dependent on the announcements that will come in the next couple of days.
Great, thank you. Final comment from Andrea says, Abby, you know our business. Yes, it's gorgeous. And we've expanded over the years, which means our rent has increased and rates too. All the rooms at number 49 have different rateable values, so although each room may be under £12,000, it comes to over £40,000. As things are, we will not be financially viable in a financial position to reopen. Oh, that's so sad. I appreciate your efforts and time to do this, so thank you all concerned. That's number 49 in Usk there.
That seems to me an extraordinary situation where you've got different rooms with different rateable values. Would that not be a case for the district valuers to have a look at that? Because I find that extraordinary. There must be some reason behind that, and maybe some of you know what that might be. But again, I think it's a very valid question, and one that I think we need to be taking up directly to see if we can find a way through this for them.
Thank you very much, Bob. That's the end of our questions that have come in.
Okay, and thank you, Abby, for taking all those and for managing that, because that's beyond me dealing with all of that. So well done. Jonathan looks as if he's breathing a sigh of relief to get to the end of the questions. But I think we've learned a lot from some of that as well. I think we've learned that there are certain areas where there are clearly problems that are common to a lot of businesses out there, and we will need to take that up. I think the other thing we've learned from the questions is that an awful lot rests on the announcement from the Welsh Government that might be coming tomorrow. Now, if we do get an announcement on further grants tomorrow, that will mean that in the weeks to come, filtering down to Monmouthshire will come the rules on how if any of those grants are to be administered by us, that we will need to be dealing with that. I think that seems to indicate to me that a similar meeting to this would be worthwhile sometime after you officers have had time to digest this. But if businesses think it might be useful again, then we'll do that. We've made several references to lobbying the Welsh Government, and it is done so on a number of different platforms, both by officers talking to officials of the Welsh Government and by elected politicians talking to the ministers in Welsh Government. But probably nobody has as much contact with the ministers in Welsh Government as our leader, Peter Fox. So I'm going to hand over to Peter now. Peter, you're mute. That's fine. Oh, you've gone mute again.
Yeah, sorry, Bob. And good evening, everybody. I've been listening intently, and it's been a really interesting session. Thanks so much for getting involved with this tonight. You know, I hope it's been some help for you, but it's certainly been some help for us, and we all feel for you. The situation you've been dealing with and currently dealing with is, well, it must be untenable for many of you, and we're not sure when it's going to let up. But we, as Bob indicated earlier, you know, we'll pull out the stops to do whatever we can to make sure funding gets out to you. We've done that all along. I know at times there's frustration when perhaps money doesn't flow through as fast as you were hoping it would, and that's not through lack of effort. It's usually around a lack of clarity on regulations and different things like that. And everybody, Wales Government to us, are all pulling the stops out to try and make this happen. I think some of the key messages I've heard tonight, you know, it's shown how many people are still falling between the gaps and haven't been eligible for things tonight. And I think Lucy's point on the lack of timely information, or the need for timely information, was a really good point. So that at least you know what you can go for, and you know, if you can't get it, you're told you can't get it, so you're not, you know, chasing a red herring. So it's really important you get that timely information. The issues I've heard loud and clear, and we've made these concerns known about, you know, business rate holidays. I hear again what Lucy said about, you know, many of you are, you know, going to lose an awful lot of income through these first couple of months of January. And that's going to really knock on. We hope perhaps something will come out tomorrow. We don't know what. I haven't got a clue into that, what's coming tomorrow. I may get an insight because I have meetings with ministers and other Welsh leaders tomorrow morning, and perhaps we'll get a heads up before lunchtime when I expect the First Minister will announce some things. But that is an issue I'll be raising really strongly again tomorrow. And all leaders across Wales have been pushing constantly the need for really swift action when business support is announced, to get it out as quickly as possible. We recognise that you've got overheads, you've got to keep paying all of the time. You can't you can't afford, you can't manage great big gaps as we move forward. Andrea's point was one which she's made really well, and I think Bob covered that. We need to look into that for businesses like Andrea's, because you know, this is just doesn't make sense. You know, we want businesses to be able to thrive, be able to expand, to be innovative and dynamic, and yet then if you know, when it comes to that, these hard situations, if the support's not there for you, it's not fair, and we need to lobby again for you in that regard. For those of you who you know, who are struggling, certainly within the hospitality sector, as I shared this morning with colleagues, you know, our public protection teams, our licensing teams are ready to help you if you want to change the nature of how you perhaps trade in, if you're wanting to do things like take away alcohol to match your takeaway meals and things like that, or if there are issues with your current licensing arrangements. If we can help you with those, our teams are ready to do that. We'll maintain those good communications through the destination partnership, and make sure all information on available grants is available to you. And let's hope we've got some good news for you on that front tomorrow. We're constantly still messaging and keeping contact with the visitors who would normally come to Monmouthshire, because, you know, it's really important we hit the ground running when things are lifted, and we need to encourage visitors back into the county really quickly. You know, as Bob said right at the beginning, your business is absolutely fundamental to Monmouthshire. You're what makes Monmouthshire the place it is, and we need to absolutely keep you going. And as soon as things do open up as well, and we can get moving again, we'll be really pushing the Shop Local campaign as well. Getting Monmouthshire money spent in Monmouthshire, absolutely key, fundamental for us, and we'll do whatever we can to help in that regard. But I'm going to, I'll be speaking to colleagues after this meeting. We'll collate the key messages that I can pass into the Welsh Local Government Association tomorrow and the ministers as they meet with us, especially those of you who seem to be missing out. And we'll make sure we put those messages really firmly for you. I can only guess how hard it is for many of you at the moment, but as I said at the beginning, we'll do all we can. We'll stand by you wherever we can. And I know you may feel alone, but we are here if you need us. And we know our teams are accessible. Please keep your eye on the website and get in touch with us. You can find many of our emails, Bob's and mine. Certainly, you can find us very easily. Contact us. We'll do whatever we can to help you. So, and can I just thank Jonathan from Wales Government for his continued support of the Business Resilience Forum, and people like Lucy and the other representatives who come in and have been coming in for the last 12 months. And you've been a brilliant voice for local business, and we thank you for your inputs. It helps us shape the direction we're going. So it's been great to join you tonight. Thanks for taking part. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Peter, and I would also reiterate the thanks to Jonathan and to Ruth and to James for fielding the questions, to Abby for being there in the background and in the foreground some of the time, especially when I lost my connection for a few minutes. That's Monmouthshire broadband for you, but that's another issue that we're dealing with. Finally, I just would ask you, if you would, everybody, if you would let us know if you found this useful. If you found it, well, even if you haven't found it useful, let us know, because we need to know what you want and the best way of supporting you over the coming weeks, months, and possibly years. And so your feedback to us is very important. And I think you'll find the links to that on our Monmouthshire website, and certainly James Woodcock at monmouthshire.gov.uk is another way that you can do it. So thank you for your time. And as Peter has said, we are very much with you. We want to support you, and we want to see that Monmouthshire retains its important businesses into the future. Thank you, everyone, and good luck. Bye.